In a world where the government had perfected a technology known as the superbrain, individuality was all but extinct. This state-of-the-art system monitored thoughts and actions, ensuring that everyone stayed in line. Ironically, the technology was introduced as a voluntary enhancement to help citizens lead happier, more productive lives. The truth, however, was as grim as it was absurd. The government was using it to control every aspect of human existence. Alex Chen, a 30-something programmer with a penchant for sarcasm, found himself trapped in the labyrinth of cubicles that made up the Ministry of Thought Control. Each day blended into the next, filled with tedious coding and mind-numbing meetings. He was the quintessential office drone, a cog in the machine, working tirelessly on the very code that ensnared the population. The office was bright, sterile, and buzzing with the sounds of keyboards clacking and coffee machines whirring. Alex often found himself lost in thought, or, more accurately, struggling against it. He had a talent for finding humor in the most mundane situations. Just last week, he had accidentally sent a cat meme to the entire department instead of the weekly compliance report. The fallout had been spectacular, a flood of laughter that spread like wildfire, but it also led to his being called into the manager's office, where the stern-faced Ms. Harding had admonished him about professionalism. Today, as he stared at his computer screen, Alex found himself caught in another moment of comedic absurdity. He had spilled coffee all over his colleague Brenda's keyboard while attempting to juggle his breakfast bagel and an urgent email. The ensuing chaos had drawn the attention of everyone in the vicinity. While Brenda fumed, Alex couldn't help but chuckle. He was now the proud owner of a very public coffee incident, the kind of mishap that would haunt his nightmares, or perhaps fuel his creative writing ambitions. Just as he was about to make a half-hearted apology, something unexpected caught his eye on the screen. There was a peculiar line of code nestled within the superbrain's algorithm. Alex squinted at it, confusion giving way to curiosity. He had spent years crafting this system, yet he had never seen this particular sequence before. He leaned closer, excitement bubbling within him as he realized this was a vulnerability. A flaw that could be exploited. His mind raced. Could he actually use this flaw to break free from the system's grasp? The idea of a rebellion, however small, sent shivers down his spine. Was it possible? Was he really considering taking on the very government that had orchestrated a life of blissful submission? Before he could dwell too long on his revolutionary thoughts, Ms. Harding's voice sliced through the air. "Chen! Get back to work," she snapped, her glare sharp enough to cut through steel. As he returned to his coding, the thought of the vulnerability buzzed in his head like an annoying fly. A rebellion, a chance to defy the system. He had to explore this further. But how? How could he act without alerting the superbrain? That evening, fueled by a mix of caffeine and adrenaline, Alex plopped down at his desk at home, eager to dive into the code. Hours passed as he lost himself in the intricate web of programming. He could almost feel the superbrain pulsing in the background, unaware of the storm brewing in the heart of its architect. When the clock struck midnight, he finally leaned back, stretching his arms above his head. "I've got it," he exclaimed, startling his cat, Mocha, who stared at him as if he had lost his mind. Alex chuckled. "Well, at least you're not wired to the superbrain, huh?" His excitement was short-lived, though. As he pondered his next steps, doubt crept in. What if he failed? What if he triggered a security alert? He couldn't go back to being just another cog. No, he had to find allies, people who believed in freedom, who craved individuality. But where would he find such people in a world that had learned to embrace conformity? The next day, he stumbled upon Sam, a conspiracy theorist with an unkempt beard and an arsenal of wild ideas. Sam had a knack for spotting government cover-ups and often held forth in the local cafe about the impending doom of the superbrain. Initially dismissing him as just another nut, Alex found himself intrigued. After a few awkward exchanges over too many cups of coffee, they struck an unlikely alliance. "Think about it, man," Sam exclaimed, waving his arms dramatically. "We're all just puppets dancing to the government's tune. If we can expose this flaw, we could free ourselves." Alex felt a surge of enthusiasm mixed with apprehension. "Okay, but how do we even begin?" "Simple," Sam said, grinning like a madman. "We'll need to spread the word. Find others who are disillusioned. There's bound to be a resistance out there. We just have to look in the right places." With Sam's enthusiasm, Alex began to imagine a network of like-minded individuals, each ready to join the fight against the absurdity of their controlled lives. Their first meeting took place at an underground cafe, an eccentric establishment known as the Discontent Cafe, where mismatched furniture and walls plastered with protest posters created an atmosphere that felt electric. There, they met Lily, Alex's tech-savvy neighbor. Initially skeptical of Alex's sanity, she soon warmed up to their cause when they presented the vulnerability. "Let me get this straight," she said, her eyes sparkling with intrigue. "You found a way to disconnect people from the superbrain temporarily?" "Exactly," Alex replied, excitement bubbling in his voice. "We can send a message through the system without them knowing." The trio spent hours brainstorming and plotting, each idea more ludicrous than the last. Their planning sessions were filled with absurdity, like the time they tried to communicate via meme references, leading to an entire debate about the most appropriate Shrek quotes for their mission. Weeks passed as they crafted their plan, growing closer with each ridiculous mishap. Alex's coffee spills and Sam's wild theories became running jokes, a testament to their burgeoning friendship. As the day of their planned action approached, the air buzzed with anticipation. Would they really be able to send their message during the government gala? Would anyone even care? On the day of the gala, the grand ballroom was a spectacle of glitz and glamour, adorned with shimmering lights and extravagant decorations. Alex felt a mix of excitement and fear as they slipped into the venue, blending into the crowd of oblivious attendees. The plan was simple: they would create a diversion, allowing Alex to upload their message through the superbrain. As the evening unfolded, the trio executed their plan with surprising finesse, like a three-legged dog navigating an obstacle course. Just as the gala reached its peak, with speeches touting the superbrain's benefits, Alex activated their signal. The message flashed across screens: "Think for yourself. The superbrain doesn't own you." For a brief moment, the room fell silent as the attendees processed the words. Then chaos erupted. People experienced brief moments of free thought, leading to outlandish outbursts: a politician declaring his love for pineapple on pizza, a celebrity proclaiming her desire to open a cat sanctuary, and a banker openly weeping for his lost dreams of becoming a poet. Laughter mingled with confusion, a delightful cocktail of humanity rediscovering itself. But as the revelry reached its zenith, alarms blared, and Alex's heart sank. The government had anticipated a breach. New safeguards had been activated, and their moment of triumph turned into a frantic escape. The trio sprinted through the ballroom, weaving past bewildered guests and dodging security personnel. Each moment was fraught with comedic disaster. Sam tripped over a table, sending hors d'oeuvres flying, while Alex's pants caught on a chair, nearly dragging him back. "Keep moving," Lily shouted, her voice barely audible over the chaos. Just as they reached the exit, they were confronted by a cadre of agents. Alex's stomach dropped. They were cornered, with no escape in sight. But then, in a moment of clarity, he realized that the real strength of the super brain lay not in its control but in the connections people made when they were free to think. "We have to broadcast this," he said, his voice steady. "Show them the truth." Lily nodded, her eyes wide with determination. Together, they turned to face the agents, channeling their fear into courage. "We may be outnumbered," Alex said, "but we have the power of ideas." In a whirlwind of clever maneuvering, they exploited the remaining flaws in the system, rallying the crowd. "You are not alone. Think for yourselves." Alex's voice rang out, echoing in the chaos. The agents faltered, momentarily confused by the wave of humanity surging against them. In that instant, the trio seized their chance, slipping through the throngs of people who had begun to awaken to their own thoughts. Outside, the streets were alive with energy. The broadcast had inspired a movement, and people began to gather, shouting for freedom and individuality. The government, taken aback, scrambled to regain control, but the tide had turned. Days turned into weeks as the resistance grew, fueled by Alex, Sam, and Lily's efforts. They found themselves at the forefront of a new revolution, rallying individuals to reclaim their minds and lives from the clutches of the super brain. As the sun set over the city, casting long shadows over the streets filled with protesters, Alex stood alongside his friends, taking in the scene. The laughter, the shouts, the vibrant energy, it was all so refreshing. "Can you believe it?" Sam said, his grin wide. "We actually did it." "We started a movement," Lily added, her eyes sparkling. "And it feels amazing." Alex looked at them, a mix of disbelief and pride swelling within him. Who would have thought that a coffee spill would lead to this? As the crowd began to chant, "Think for yourself. Free your mind," Alex couldn't help but join in. "Free Thoughts Incorporated," he quipped, a smirk playing on his lips. "I should totally start a tech company dedicated to this." And with that, the three friends stood united, ready to face whatever absurdity the future held, their lives forever changed by the power of connection and the joy of reclaiming their own thoughts. The government may have tried to dominate their minds, but in that moment, they realized the most potent force of all was the simple act of thinking freely, and the laughter that came with it. In the days that followed, the momentum of the resistance only grew stronger. What had started as a haphazard trio of unlikely revolutionaries had blossomed into a vibrant community of thinkers, dreamers, and doers. They were gathering in makeshift meeting spots, coffee shops, parks, anywhere they could exchange ideas without the looming threat of the super brain overhead. Alex, Sam, and Lily became unofficial leaders, each bringing their unique flair to the burgeoning movement. The first few meetings were raucous affairs, full of animated discussions, laughter, and sometimes heated debates. People from all walks of life joined, eager to share their stories of life under the super brain. There were artists who had felt their creativity stifled, entrepreneurs who had watched their innovative ideas quashed, and everyday citizens who simply longed for the freedom to express their thoughts without fear of repercussions. During one meeting at the Discontent Cafe, the walls pulsated with energy. A local artist named Zoe had taken the initiative to create art that reflected their struggle, her paintings vibrant and chaotic, filled with splashes of color that seemed to breathe life into the room. "Art should reflect our reality," she proclaimed, her voice passionate. "And right now, our reality is one of control, but we're fighting back." Alex, standing near the front, couldn't help but feel a surge of hope. "We're not just fighting for our own freedom, we're fighting for everyone who feels trapped," he added, his heart racing. "We need to amplify our message. Let's get more creative, use art, music, anything that can spread the word. Sam, ever the conspiracy theorist, leaned in, eyes sparkling. What if we organize a city-wide art event? A festival that showcases our voices? We could create a wave of thought-provoking pieces that challenge the narrative of the super brain. Brilliant idea! Lily exclaimed, her enthusiasm contagious. We could call it Free Your Mind Fest. We can bring together musicians, artists, and speakers, anyone who believes in what we're doing. As they brainstormed, the air thickened with possibility. Ideas flew around the table, each one building upon the last, creating a tapestry of collaboration that felt electric. They planned everything meticulously, from setting up venues to reaching out to local artists and musicians, all while ensuring that the super brain's watchful gaze would be distracted. The day of the festival arrived with an unexpected burst of sunshine. The streets were transformed into a celebration of free thought, dotted with stalls displaying art that challenged the norm. Banners proclaiming slogans like "Think for yourself" and "Reclaim your mind" flapped in the gentle breeze, as musicians played tunes that resonated with the spirit of rebellion. Alex stood on a makeshift stage, taking a moment to soak it all in. The park was filled with laughter, music, and the vibrant energy of people reclaiming their individuality. It was beautiful chaos. This is what we've fought for, he thought, his heart swelling with pride. When he stepped up to the microphone, the crowd fell silent, eyes fixed on him. Thank you all for being here today, he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. We are here because we refuse to be controlled. We are here to celebrate our minds, our creativity, and our right to think freely. Together, we can break the chains that bind us. The crowd erupted into applause, their cheers echoing through the park. It felt like the world was waking up around him. As he looked out at the sea of faces, he spotted Sam and Lily in the front row, their smiles wide and encouraging. Let's continue to support each other, Alex urged, the passion in his voice infectious. Let's not just stop here. Let's build a future where our thoughts can flow freely, where creativity isn't stifled by fear. Together, we can make a difference. As the day unfolded, artists unveiled their pieces, each more daring than the last. One installation featured a giant mural depicting a world where thoughts were free, contrasting it against the oppressive black and white backdrop of the super brain's control. Another performance piece involved dancers who embodied the struggle against the system, their movements both graceful and raw, echoing the fight for freedom. The festival continued late into the evening, the sun dipping low and casting a golden glow over everything. People mingled, sharing stories and forging connections. Alex felt a sense of camaraderie he had never experienced before. The energy was palpable, and laughter filled the air like music. As twilight settled in, the mood shifted to something more reflective. A local poet took the stage, her words weaving a tapestry of emotion that resonated deeply with the crowd. We have lived in the shadows of control, she recited, her voice smooth yet powerful. But today, we stand in the light of our own minds, unshackled and ready to soar. Alex felt a lump in his throat. The truth in her words echoed through him, filling him with an overwhelming sense of hope. This was what they had worked for, a community rising against the absurdity that had sought to stifle them. As the festival wound down, the trio gathered together, basking in the glow of their success. I can't believe we pulled it off, Sam said, his voice brimming with excitement. This is just the beginning. Absolutely, Lily agreed, a fierce determination in her eyes. We've shown that people want this. We need to keep the momentum going. Right, Alex said, a smile stretching across his face. We've got to keep the conversations alive. Let's plan more events, more discussions. We need to reach people who are still under the superbrain's influence. We can't stop now. Their laughter mingled with the fading music of the festival, a sound of triumph echoing into the night. They were no longer just a trio of friends, they were the nucleus of a movement, a beacon of hope in a world that had once seemed so dim, but as the glow of success warmed their spirits, the harsh reality loomed just outside their celebratory bubble. The government had taken note of their uprising. Alex, Sam, and Lily were acutely aware that they were now targets, their faces no longer just anonymous cogs in the machine. They had stirred the pot, and the government was not about to let this rebellion go unchecked. In the days that followed, the trio began to receive threats. It started with anonymous messages, vague warnings urging them to cease their activities. But they brushed them off, emboldened by the energy of the festival and the connections they had made. They were fighting for something bigger than themselves, and they refused to back down. However, as the weeks went on, the threats escalated. Alex began to notice unmarked vehicles parked near his apartment, shadowy figures lurking just outside his line of sight. Every time he stepped outside, he felt the weight of scrutiny. The once familiar streets began to feel suffocating, and he couldn't shake the sense that they were being hunted. One night, while working late at the cafe, Alex received an urgent message from Lily. "Meet us at our usual spot. It's important." His stomach dropped as he quickly packed up his laptop. He dashed through the dimly lit streets, heart racing. What could have happened? When he arrived at the Discontent Cafe, he found Sam and Lily huddled together, their faces etched with concern. "What's going on?" Alex asked, the tension in the air palpable. "It's getting serious," Lily said, her voice low. "I just heard from one of our contacts that they're planning to crack down on us. They want to shut down the movement before it grows any bigger." Alex's heart sank. "What do we do?" "We can't go into hiding," Sam interjected, a spark of defiance igniting in his eyes. "We need to stand our ground. But we have to be smart about it. We can't give them any more ammunition." After a tense discussion, they agreed to ramp up their efforts to spread awareness while remaining vigilant. They would continue organizing meetings, but they would do so discreetly, utilizing encrypted channels to communicate and setting up new locations on the fly. Over the next few weeks, the trio worked tirelessly. They organized small gatherings, but they were no longer held at the Discontent Cafe. Instead, they met in secret locations, using old warehouses and community centers that didn't attract much attention. They also began to employ a network of allies, sharing the responsibility of organizing and spreading the word. Despite their precautions, the government's watchful eye never wavered. Alex felt increasingly anxious as the threat loomed overhead, and he noticed that his friends shared his unease. They were fighting for their freedom, but the cost was becoming more apparent with each passing day. One evening, as they huddled together in a dimly lit warehouse, Sam leaned forward, his expression serious. "We need a game plan. If they're watching us, we have to be one step ahead." Lily nodded. "We should consider a public demonstration, something that can't be ignored. But we have to make sure it's safe. We can't let them silence us." Alex's mind raced. "What if we organize a march? We can rally people to come out and show their support. We'll create a wave of momentum that's impossible to ignore." The idea electrified the room. They began discussing logistics, planning a date, and spreading the word discreetly among their network. They knew it was a risk, but the thought of people coming together in solidarity felt like the only way forward. As the date approached, the air was thick with anticipation. Flyers circulated through underground channels, urging people to join the march for free thought and individuality. Alex felt a mix of excitement and dread as he watched the numbers grow. The movement was expanding, but so was the risk. On the day of the march, a palpable energy filled the streets. Alex stood among the crowd, feeling a surge of pride as he looked around at the sea of faces, familiar and new, gathered in defiance of the superbrain. They held signs, chanted slogans, and embodied the spirit of change. As the march began, Alex found himself at the front, alongside Sam and Lily. "This is it," he shouted over the roar of the crowd. "We're not just a voice, we're a movement." The atmosphere was electric, a powerful symphony of determination. But just as they rounded a corner, the sound of sirens pierced the air. Alex's heart raced as he glanced back to see a line of government agents moving in, their expressions grim. "Stay together," Lily shouted, trying to keep the group united. The crowd surged, a wave of panic spreading through the throng as people turned to flee, but Alex felt a strange calm wash over him. This was their moment, they had to stand firm. "No! Don't run," he yelled, raising his hands to the crowd. "We won't let them intimidate us." For a brief moment, the crowd hesitated, uncertainty flickering across faces. But then, a few brave souls began to chant louder. "Free our minds! Free our minds!" The words echoed, reverberating through the streets. Feeling a rush of adrenaline, Alex took a deep breath. "We are the voice of the people. We will not be silenced." The chant grew, swelling into a roar that filled the air, drowning out the sound of sirens. Alex felt the unity of the crowd, their determination amplifying his own. They were no longer just individuals, they were a collective force. As the agents moved closer, the crowd held its ground. People stood shoulder to shoulder, unwavering in their commitment to freedom. And then, as if the universe itself had conspired to amplify their defiance, a strange, magical thing happened. A few members of the crowd began to break into song, their voices lifting into the air. "This land is your land, this land is my land," the song rippled through the crowd, infectious and powerful. One by one, more voices joined in, harmonizing in a beautiful cacophony that overwhelmed the police presence. It was a moment of pure connection, a demonstration of solidarity that transcended the fear that had threatened to rip them apart. The agents halted, momentarily disarmed by the spectacle. And in that instant, the tide turned. The crowd erupted into a spirited dance, swirling around the agents, who stood frozen in disbelief. The moment was surreal. Laughter and joy intermingled with the chants, as the march transformed into a celebration of resilience. People spun and twirled, their fears fading into the background as they embraced the joy of being together, of standing for something greater. As the song reached its climax, Alex caught a glimpse of Sam and Lily, their faces lit with triumph. They had turned fear into a celebration, and in doing so, they had proven that the spirit of individuality could not be crushed. But just as the energy peaked, the agents regrouped, their resolve hardening. They began to push forward, attempting to break the formation of the crowd. Alex's heart sank as he watched, knowing the danger they faced. "Form a line," he shouted, desperation seeping into his voice. "Don't let them divide us." The crowd responded, moving in unison to create a barrier against the agents. Alex felt a surge of adrenaline as he joined the front line, standing shoulder to shoulder with his fellow marchers. Together, they formed a wall of resistance, unyielding and steadfast. As the agents advanced, it became clear that they underestimated the power of a united people. The chants grew louder, more fervent, as the crowd stood firm. Free our minds! Free our minds! In that moment, Alex understood the significance of what they were doing. They were not just fighting against the superbrain, they were fighting for their right to exist as individuals, to think, to feel, and to express themselves freely. The agents faltered, caught off guard by the determination of the crowd. The song morphed into a rallying cry, a declaration of their unwillingness to back down. Realizing that they couldn't quell the uprising with brute force, the government agents retreated, their authority waning in the face of collective spirit. The crowd erupted into cheers, their victory echoing through the streets. As the agents withdrew, Alex felt a wave of relief wash over him. They had faced down oppression with unity and joy, and they had won, if only for that moment. In the aftermath, people embraced one another, laughter and tears mingling in the air. Alex found himself swept up in the celebration, surrounded by new friends and old allies. "I can't believe we did it!" Sam shouted, his voice barely audible over the din of excitement. "It's not over yet," Lily replied, her expression serious but proud. "This is just the beginning. We have to keep fighting." As the crowd began to disperse, Alex felt a profound sense of purpose settle within him. They had sparked something powerful, a fire that could not be extinguished. With Sam and Lily by his side, he knew they would continue to challenge the superbrain and inspire others to join the fight. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the streets, Alex took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the world shifting. They were no longer just fighting for their own freedom, they were igniting a movement that would change the course of their lives and the lives of countless others. Together, they would forge a path toward a future where individuality flourished, and the power of free thought triumphed over control. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but they were ready to face whatever lay ahead, armed with the unbreakable bond of solidarity and the indomitable spirit of humanity. The fight for freedom had only just begun. And in that certainty, Alex felt a renewed sense of hope. They would not back down. They would not be silenced. This was their moment, and they would seize it with all the laughter, creativity, and courage they could muster. The story of their rebellion was far from over. It was only the beginning of a new chapter, one that would echo through the hearts and minds of people yearning to break free from the chains of conformity. With a determined heart, Alex stepped forward into the future, ready to embrace the adventures and challenges that awaited. The world was ripe with possibility, and together, they would shape it.